Hey everyone, welcome to Desk the Data Center episode 3. Today we're going to be configuring the lifecycle controller and iDrac system on a Dell, what is this, a PowerEdge R520. So a very old system, so bear with us and stay tuned. All right, so this is, if you remember, we configured a port in VLAN 50 specifically for iDrac. And that is what we have right here is our iDrac port up and available. Now, iDrac stands for Integrated Dell Remote Access Controller, and this is version 7, which is extremely old, but we also can't update it because this server is no longer under warranty or support or anything like that. So when you first get a server much like this, you usually have it pick up a DHCP address on your iDrac network. You wait for that to come up. Maybe you even plug in a crash cart and do some pre-configure in the BIOS, configure the system for things like, well, if it's for ESXi, you modify some CPU things. If it's for a regular server, you don't modify some things because it comes pretty standard. But a great way to get started and remote do all of these features is to configure your iDrac. So we're going to log in. And this is the default password. And what usually comes up when you set the default password is a warning that says, hey, you should change this password. I've already passed through that once, so we're not going to see that. So boom, right as you get in, you're going to see a lot of cool stuff about your system. I will have some of this blocked out just to protect the privacy of who this server actually belongs to. So when I return it to them, they don't have to worry about their information being out on the internet. But you can see here your server health, batteries, fans, intrusion attempts. So no one's opened the case lately. One of the power supplies is red because I only have one power supply plugged in. We're good on removal of flash media. I don't think I have one plugged in. Temperatures look good and voltages look good. You get a virtual console window, so you don't need a crash cart once you get iDrac set up. I mean, you're right in there. You can launch this. You can work with the BIOS. You can work with the OS. And that's probably what we'll do when we install ESXi on this. And we'll do things a little bit basic. We'll use a USB key versus a network boot because we don't have a Pixie server or anything like that. But you can go through this and there's log system. So it'll tell you, hey, it booted the C drive, power supply. You can check your power and thermals. So you can monitor, like, we're currently using 126 watts. That's 14% capacity. There's our power info, things of that nature, what's consuming power. Very cool. This is some modifications you can make to the virtual console. So if you need something changed a little bit, this is where you can do that. You can set up alerting in here. I probably won't set that up right now, but it's really simple. You enable the alerts, you say what you want alerts on, you put in an email address and you hit go. You can also set up what's called SNMP, which is extremely cool. And you don't want to do SNMP v1, 2 or 3 only. So this is where you say, hey, you're going to send information from SNMP to this destination address. And we might do that later. And you're going to use this community screen, which you'll set yourself. And again, we'll do all this later. We'll do this in a different video. But right now we're just setting up iDrac to get it ready to go with what our environment has. And our environment is pretty basic right now. We don't have anything here. Here's a really cool place to get postcodes, crash screens. You can do video capture, all sorts of cool stuff in here. This is where your licenses live for this. And if you get a non-perpetual license, you do have to update this. Here's where you configure your iDrac settings. So we did have to set this static, even though it was set for DHCP, just so it would stay on this IP address. Sometimes iDrac is a little finicky, especially when it's older. This is where you configure your users. So right now we just have an anonymous user and a root user. You should configure a different administrator account and not use the root one anymore and disable the root password, disable the root user, or at least configure a very strong password. Here's where you do updates and rollbacks. But again, we can't do any of those. We don't have the licensing to update. Here's where you can save your server profile. So let's say you've got 50 of these PowerEdge 520s and you only want to configure their iDrac and all their system configurations one time, and you want them to all be the same. You can do that here. You can back up one you like and then import it into other servers. And then here's where you can see your sessions. So you know who's logged in, where they're logged in, all that. And then here's really nice battery info or hardware information, starting with the batteries. Going into the fans, the CPU, we can see we've got Intel Xenon E5 2430s at 250 gigahertz, and we got 2 of them. Very cool. And we have 128 gigs of RAM. Our max is 384, which is a sad state of affairs in this day and age. But as you can see, we've got some DIMMs stuck in. This will let us configure our front panel. So I've got it saying the iDrac address. You can change this to say different things, you know, the service tag, asset tag, MAC address if you want, system power, temperature, model, host name. A lot of people usually configure the host name. That way they don't have to stick a host name label on things, a physical label, because you can go in and change this if you change the server. And then this tells you about your network devices. So we have a Broadcom Gigabit Ethernet embedded NIC 1. As you can see, it's got 2 ports on it. They're not plugged in right now, even though they will be soon. And then here's your power supplies, yada, yada, yada. Now this is a pretty important area. This is your physical disk layout. So as you can see, we've got 2 disks that are 278 gigs and 3 disks that are 931. We're gonna make 2 virtual disks. RAID 1 with the 278 gig drives and a RAID 5 with the 900 gig drives, because this is gonna be our ESXi boot drive, and this is going to be our data drive. It tells you about your controller, your RAID controller, and the battery. Our battery is good on a RAID controller. This is usually what dies on a RAID controller first. And then here's our enclosures. So you can see all the slots in the front, 5 and 6 are empty. All the other drives are in here. And then this is where, if you had a host OS configuration that talked back and forth, which requires a little bit of software, that will let you kind of work with the host OS inside of the system. So I hope this has been informative. If you are curious about more related to iDrac, let me know. Let me know how you configure your iDrac or your IPMI or your IKVM or whatever option you have available to you for configuring and managing your servers remotely without having to walk down to the data center. Now, obviously, our data center is right over there, so we don't have to walk very far. But if it was downstairs or in a different building, I wouldn't want to go over there every time there was an error. I would want it to tell me there's an error and then go to the iDrac and fix it from a remote location. So don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I hope you did. Again, let me know what you do to configure your iDracs. Any tips and tricks that you use during your remote management configuration phases. And stay tuned for the next one. Thanks, and have a good one.